I really can say hundreds of things to Ute, but as you are here, I also, and I think Ute too, want to profit, because tomorrow I'm going to speak with her for 2 hours. So I really can ask her questions, but if you wish to ask questions or to say anything, and if you dare saying it, please dare. Because I know it's not easy to speak from when you are from the public. Usually I don't speak because I don't dare, because I say, oh no, it's too stupid, that's what I think, and I don't have an intelligent question or intelligent whatever. But you are intelligent, so please.
Yes, I'd be delighted just to hear if you know what you saw. It's the strange thing is when you make a film, and I have been working on this film for a few years. When you sit there and you edit the film, you're the only one who doesn't see the film anymore because you're so close. So I would be really happy to just something which comes to your mind, also critique whatever. I'd really enjoyed hearing it.
Okay. First of all, I would like to say that you choose a really interesting way of filming it. I've seen that you focused a lot of reading from letters or excerpts from books, I suppose. And usually when you see a documentary about what happened during the Holocaust and all that, let's say, dark period from the German history, usually you see a lot of pictures from concentration camps or places where people used to be tortured, where they suffered. And I would like to ask if there is a reason behind, this way of filming. You decided to focus on places and you wanted to read some letters. And I think that you really focused around the year 1933. And I want to ask if there is a reason behind this choice. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. So, in general, I can say the film aims, although it talks a lot about the past, but the picture stays in the present all the time, and it's pointing at the present in a way, or it focuses on the present in the way that the past is there to show us the mechanisms, which are quite simple. You ban clubs, you forbid meeting places and things. I mean, it's the procedure or the structure is quite simple, from a constitutional state to a regime of terror. And what was important to me is to show that mechanisms, which lead to very fast, actually, to exclusion of certain groups, isolation, and extreme violence. And these camps you see in the film, let's say in the past years they have been largely forgotten. Historically it has been processed, but I think there are different reasons why they have been forgotten. One is certainly because, the large extermination camps like Auschwitz and Buchenwald, it's so monstrous that it's always in the focus when you talk about concentration camps. So one part was to make this history known, because also, because also in Germany, resistance against the Nazis, there was an attentat, comment tu dis attentat en anglais,
A terror attack.
a terror attack on Hitler in 1943 by an aristocrat, a military, he's called Stauffenberg. And we have a museum of the German resistance against the Nazis, and there is a whole, there are like 5 rooms leading to his portrait, and in the last room it's just his portrait. So when, people from high school, if they go there, that's what's presented to them, really in a focused way as the German resistance. Although there has been a resistance which is rather, it's not anymore on the radar. And also it's not on the radar because the GDR, which ended after the fall of the wall. For them, actually, anti-fascism was a very, all the anti-fascist monuments you see, they are in the GDR, because in the West there were no anti-fascist monuments. Obviously, this culture of remembrance was, after the fall of the wall, it ended. And the memorials, as you can see, were renamed and new lines were inscripted. And you were asking for the picture, you know, when you shoot, because I told Vanina already, but I will tell you also, when I went there the first time, it was in winter, and we would go up and down the street trying to find these former camps, which were totally, we didn't know. And we would say, oh, it was in this building, I'm sure it was there. And then I was with a friend and he said, no, it must be this one. And the second day we thought, like, you know, it's kind of, every building can become a camp if the political situation is in that way. And so the film has specific sites, which you see, you know, there's a sports hall, and there's a former factory, and there are the Statut castle. But at the same time, it's not site-specific also, or I tried to, I hope it's a bit like that. I hope it's like that. That you can see it's a cultural landscape, which, and in the shooting, obviously, you know, you can, when you see, for example, Nazi time, when you look at History Channel or other interpretations, or, you know, you can tell the Nazi era like, you know, like a big crime story. And when I was filming there, because I had also documents telling me what was taking place exactly where, but I really refused to get into that thing, you know, show this to film behind this door, this and this atrocity took place, you know, really in a detailed manner going, because it's very easy to fall into this. I was more interested in the normalcy, you know, in that harmless, can you say this, harmless, you know, just, I was more interested in that, and also that one could see the layers of time, you know, GDR, Nazi time, and what we have today in the pictures, and also, yeah, basically. Or also I would construct, for example, what I learned very fast is, you know, these later camps like Auschwitz or Buchenwald, they're barracks on a green lawn. And that's what I learned were concentration camps. On a green field, outside. And what I learned is, when I saw the first camps, I thought, like, it's a picture you see in the beginning, it's the fortress.
Big castle.
The big castle and the village. And when you see how close it is, I mean, it is obvious that you cannot, everybody who lived there knew what was going on there. You can't, you know, it's not somewhere in the forest or, and so I tried to shoot the picture this way, you know, that you have to think the village and the camp together, and not like, oh, there are bad things happening in the camp and the village is, you know, a place of happiness or.
Yeah, and this leads me to my next question. I am curious if you tried to meet some people and tried to find out some information, and they were like, no, you shouldn't be studying that. I mean, you met with refusal from the villagers or people who you were talking with.
Sometimes I had to call the mayor of the village because we didn't find it. I mean, with the castles it was easy. Huh? You go there and you see it from 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers before you can see it on the mountain. But like for the sports hall, for example, I had to call the mayor, and the mayor told me to call there's something which is called the local chronist, historical chronist of small towns. And they told me, and they would say things like, oh yeah, there were some prisoners, like 3 or 6. Every camp you see, it was at least 300 or up to 600, and then the large one, the factory is like 3,000 or 5. And they would say, oh, there were some prisoners, but it was not a camp. You know, it was just for 12 months or something. And you had documents, you know, or who would, you know, prove it was a camp. So it was like that. And then when we were shooting and we would meet people, it was quite relaxed, I must say. Also, I had another version of sound, which was never completed, but the intention was to print out the text, and we had made a sample to make people living in the villages read the text. You know, you print it out, and we made a few. We made like 15 or something when we were shooting to try out, and so it would have a more performative, and also the language in that part is quite a bit different, you know, it's with a bit of accent. And that was quite. They were quite nice and helpful, and trying to read it in the way they could, and it was also interesting. But then I had to, when I did the editing, I couldn't go there because in the editing, the text basically developed in the editing. So I couldn't. It's like 300 kilometers from Berlin. I couldn't go there and say, "Can you please?" And then, so I had to do it myself. And then. Because you work on the text and you know it's much too much, and then you throw away the half of it, and then I had made this the whole sample, the raw cut, and then the sound designer and we were working together, and he said, "I think we don't need it anymore. It's good the way it's a solo, and that's how it's supposed to be." So.
I was wondering what you think is lacking in terms of the narrative we have around what happened in Germany and when the rise of fascism. There have been so many stories, movies, pieces of media about it, but your movie is very different in a way that it approaches it in a much more authentic and realistic way by laying down the facts very, very naturally. So I suppose you have an opinion on what has been lacking in terms of talking about Nazism and fascism in general.
Yes, that was definitely one main purpose, because I stepped over these first camps because I was interested in the politic of remembrance, because, you know, history is an ongoing project, and it's defined by the present and redefined by the present, and I think it's, you know, the political interest of the present is always visible or is intentional in that visualization of the past, and not only in memorials. Also, you know what I said in History Channel, or in Germany, most tales, I call it them tales, you have about Nazism, at least in a filmic way. It's like, you know, it's like crime stories, and I know one case where the film fund wouldn't fund a project because they would say there is no positive figure the public can relate to. Thank you. And in general, I can say in Germany, after the fall of the wall, there has been, since then, they try to portray German history in a more positive way, which you can also see in the film, in in the memorials where they put new lines. For example, they try to emphasize German suffering, you know, the air raids, the flight, the expulsion. And they do it also by, when you have a monument which says to the victims of fascism, it is very well, you know, it's very focused and it's very well defined, it's very differentiated. Now what they do is like they put a line like, to the victims of all tyranny, and it means that, because this is very bad what I'm saying now, but there's a tendency to perceive ourselves, it's difficult for me to say, but the Germans like to perceive themselves as also as victims of fascism. And, you know, and I think the German perspective has always to be self-critical and not assertive. And by doing, I think also one of the toughest pictures in the film is where it says, you know, in memory of the victims of 1933 to 1989, because that's what they generally do, you know, they talk about the two German dictatorships. But what happens when you put the GDR and Nazism in a line means you downplay National Socialism, because, you know, you downplay a war which cost 60 million lives and genocide. You know, you have, so yeah, and definitely I think not only from the content, which I think also it should be told. We should tell it in another way, what happened. Yeah.
No more question?
I think your film is some kind of a warning for the present and the future, because somehow in the beginning of it, I thought this could happen again, and it could happen today or tomorrow. In the list that you put in the end, and I love that you put it in the end, there is a mix of everything, not treating your wife bad and not libeling the government, putting the same regulations that may lead to your arrest. And yes, I think your film is a warning. I don't have a question, it's just...
Yeah, I would say so, because, you know, it's a contested space we live in. And at least in Germany, I don't know what I read, you know, renationalization is not only a German phenomenon, there are some places where it's even stronger, but I think, yes, it's a contested space, and what I can say from Germany, they try to push it, you know, as much as they can in that direction.
For me too. I agree with you. It's really, when I saw the film the first time, and every time that I see it, it's talking about us today. Yeah. It's not a film about the past.
Oh, it's about the banality of evil.
I don't hear you.
I think it's the banality of evil that strikes the most when you look at the normalcy, as you said, of the places and of the and your voice that is really calm and not shrieking like in History Channel or some, not History Channel, but some other films like about that.
Well, I was already talking about the text. In the end, because I had also a different version of, I was writing also text, you know, I would more make resumes of certain facts, because I thought one does not understand if you don't help the public to, if you don't, you know, put things together that and that happened, and then, you know, now it's really a document text, and it's in a way it was very difficult to, because in the beginning people would always say to me, tell me, you have it has to be chronological, otherwise it doesn't work. Nobody will understand if you don't put it chronological. And I said it can't be chronological because it's, you know, it's about, you have to, let's say in a way, I haven't, it's like a reenactment of what I lived through the filmmaking. You know, it's like you're in an archive and you don't get the documents, you know, well, here it's dramatized still, but you know, it's like a reenactment of that page by page. You read things and they add to, let's say, a bigger picture. Still, you know, it's a picture which fits in the scope of a film. But
and how did you work? How did you? I mean, I'm sure you are going to tell me that it's not the film you thought to do at the beginning. So, how did you start the first path through what we have seen tonight? You know, and how did you?
Basically, I come from an art context. I have been working as a video artist for a long time, and also this project was, I think I want to do something about this re-inscription, you know, how places who have, you know, they have been a sports hall, then they had been a camp for a year, and then they will be a sports hall again, about this re-inscribing things. And then when I was shooting, I was reading, you know, present, past, anytime, also GDR a lot. And then there was a woman from the municipality, from the town hall, and she had a key to because there is a castle above the large factory. There's a castle, and the first prisoners had been in the castle, and they had to go down every day to the factory to build up the camp. They would do the beds and woodwork and things. But it's not in the film because the first version was like 4 hours. And then she had a key, and she said to me, you know, we have a few things in the archive. If you'd like to visit, we'd be enchanted. And I said, of course I want to visit. And they had a box, a small box with 3 objects. There was menottes, handcuffs from the camp, and a bird and drums, which the prisoners had made for the SS guards, for the kids of the SS guards, which were carved. And there was a small amount of documents, really small, like maybe 25 pages, and the on top was one of the orders you have in the film, you know, where they order these blankets and the cameraman was filming the objects, and he said like it was like I had left the room. I was looking through these documents, and I was looking through the documents, and then a few years I went to the archives, which was it was an interesting work, and I can say I have like maybe 2,000 documents, and that was the most painful. When I started the editing, I had a long list, you know, with 3 exclamation marks. This has to be in and it's all not in there's some more.
And how did you work? How did you work? As you say, the dramaturgy in Germany. I mean, because okay, there are 2,000 documents, and then how did you choose? I mean, fine at the end.
But it was in the editing, because in the beginning, you know, I have a lot of. Just one example. There are like arrestation. Comment se dit quand quelqu'un est arrêté? Arrested, when you get arrested. I had like arrests, I have like maybe 50 really worth listening to arrests, you know. small groups, large groups, a lot of violence, almost no violence, you know, and so I thought, in the beginning I thought, I will have this fireworks of arrests in the beginning, so, you know, and then you start with it, and then I think there's only one left of them, which was not the most, you know, interesting or the most telling, but it would fit the best. It took a long time. It's very washed out, the text, in a way. It's very. Also, I wanted to keep the language, you know, to preserve the language and not soften it, but at the same time, you know, it's a film and it's not a book, so. For example, there's this, they visit the factory and they make a protocol and they say, oh, thank you very much for giving us the factory for nothing. And this document, what you have now is maybe a text when you write it in Word, you know, 12 points is like this. And the document is like 12 pages. You have, in the beginning, you have all the people who attended the, you know, Dr. so-and-so, and you know, His Excellence, Mr. So-and-so, and when you read it, you think, oh, it will be monstrous, it will be important for my film, but then, you know, it was more, you know, I simplified. Not the text, or changed it, I hope, in a, you know, I didn't make it worse or better, but I had to. And I must say, I had some friends who came to watch, and for example, I had a version where I had written things, you know, written, you know, it wasn't always like that I had only documents. I had a version where I had, you know, I had 3 documents, and then I had written a few things, you know, from which I know. Because obviously, what you don't have as a document now, it can't be in the film. You're missing, you know. And then a group of 3 came to see the raw cut, and they said, you know, just leave it out. You don't need it. I said, but you know, I can't leave it out. Nobody will understand. And it's but then, you know, I reworked it, and at some point it worked.
Anyway, that's the process of the editing, you know. You have the impression that everything is so important, and then you understand that you can cut branches and arrive to. I'm thinking of you now, Bogdan. He's one of my students, and he's facing the same thing. Like, wow, so much enthusiasm for so much documents, and he wants to put everything. But to let go, you have to grow into the film, and it took you a lot of years to grow into the films, yes, and that's and by working on it, stopping working on it maybe, and starting to work on it again, you know, sometimes sleeping on it, you can do these decisions, and yeah, with friends telling you it's not a book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and trust yourself. Yeah, but yeah, it's even if you don't want to explain things, sometimes you need to pass by this step to understand that you can let go so much, because we understood everything, even if we don't know. Even there are some, you know, you're talking about, I don't know, not the flag like that, but there was a flag, or I didn't know it. I don't know the German history. I don't care. It's not about this. It's about the mechanism.
No, for example, the red flag. The text is important, I think, because, you know, even if you have an adequate culture of remembrance, it's not so easy to do it. I remember I was in school quite, you know, just before the baccalaureate. Abitur, je sais pas.
Baccalaureate, A grade, what?
Yeah.
A grade.
And we went to a concentration camp in Czechoslovakia. I remember, nobody would talk to us. Well, we had eventually, but not about Theresienstadt specifically, or even before we went there. So the bus doors would go open, and we would just, we meet in 2 hours again, and then I remember us walking around, and we were totally lost. So we found a corner and we would smoke some cigarettes, and it's not so easy to remember things, or to connect to things, or it's quite difficult, I think. Yeah. Although I wish, maybe you can tell me, I hope that you, although you don't, maybe you haven't heard about the NSU, which is the short form of National Socialistic Underground, which was a group of 3 who killed for 10 years, they killed 10 citizens with a migrant background in Germany. And so I hope that the texts which are really from the present, that it's understandable, that, there's... I put the text from the present mainly because what I really didn't want is that people watch the film and think, oh my God, this Nazi era, it was really, really terrible, but now Germany is such a nice place. It is we're not living in fascism, and it's not, but still there are some problems with nationalism, and there is right-wing aggression and murder. So I wanted this to be known. But friends also told me, you don't need these texts because everybody knows, everybody knows about Pegida and, these demonstrations, and everybody knows, that in Germany when there is a terror attack from the right, in Hanau or at the synagogue in Halle 1.5 years ago. And you can leave it out, and I don't think, and I said, no, it has to be explicit, although I don't want to compare it or to say it's the same thing. Did you understand this, for example? The text from the present, where it's talking about terror attacks. Yeah.
Hi, but what you're approaching is such a dense subject, and I was wondering when was the time and how did you decide to stop shooting?
I would say the shooting was research from the beginning to the end. So we, you have yeah. I didn't have it's not that I didn't have, you had a building in the middle of a village, and then you would go in circles around it, and you would say, okay, which context is relevant for this, for this very site-specific work, actually. And then also trying with the text, what can the movement of the camera be? Can it be a handheld, because there's handheld camera, which I wanted, because if you only have stills with a camera or the pans, I feel it's always a simulation of objectivity, which is it's totally it's totally made, the point of views, and I really wanted to have something subjective in it, which is a rift through this objectivity, and that's why we always we have some very wild handheld camera, which is not in the film, but we did a lot of that as well. And when did we stop? I have filmed a few more places, but there was at some point it was clear that that's the scope. You can't take more.
Well, sure, but besides the visual, I was wondering more of a moral standpoint. When did you decide that you covered enough from the dynamic between past and present and forms of Nazism? I
think that's that was totally independent from shooting. In fact, it was really in the editing when I had a 4-hour version, and which was really, we still lose parts, and then yeah, I tried to concentrate. You know, to concentrate and not to. It's very, actually it's difficult because you want to tell it all, which is, anyway, it's not possible. So. I can't really name it because it's so, it was really like, you know, when you turn the earth in the garden and you turn it and you turn it and you turn it, it was not that moment when it was there. It's like it was a very, very long process.
You are like Jean-Marc Chapouli. Maybe some of you saw him, have seen his film yesterday, and he was talking that for him the writing is really happening during the editing. You know, that's why he also uses in this very film images that he has not filmed. But yeah, so you have filmed and then you were.
Well, there were moments where I thought I'm maybe not experienced enough because, as I said, I had these long lists and trying to squeeze much more into it, and. Yeah.
I have a lot of questions, but I think that I prefer to keep them for tomorrow at Manasseh Hub, and let you go and take not the last train, metro, because you lost it already. But yeah, otherwise, unless you want to. Yeah.
Does anybody of you have questions still? Je dois dire, I want to say that this is a magnificent place, and I'm really delighted that my film was shown in an open air. It's wonderful, this city.
No, it was. I don't know what you see here, but we were upstairs, and to see this film with also the buildings behind. You know, when it's a film about, for me, it's a film about today, and this, you know, there was this castle, and then the castle, kind of castle up there. Yeah, it was really wonderful to see the film in this context, because it was really going to the point of, okay, let's think of the society in which we are living. You really opened these doors, these reflection doors to us, and for me, this is big cinema. But yeah, it's you don't impose us anything, but with what you are edited, the way you have edited and thought your film, we have really answers to lots of questions and maybe new questions. But I personally had lots of answers. I mean, it's really scary also, obviously, about the period we are living in, because it's very easy to say, oh, I don't understand how come the Germany of the philosopher happened in such a quick time to be such a hell on earth. And not only in Germany, it was lots of places in Europe, but now we are in Germany. And as you say, it's happening now. You know, it's happening now everywhere. You know, there is a stupid Trump elected. I mean, it's the same thing. You know, maybe some people elected Hitler, thinking, oh, this is not a big deal. But yes, it's a big deal. It's a big responsibility that we all have as citizens.
Yes, definitely, and even more, in a more concrete way. Now, I think you have all heard. You know, they're trying to take down statues in America, where they celebrate personalities who have, you know, who stood for, you know, a lot of values one wouldn't agree with today, and then the administration blames the protesters for, you know, and tries to criminalize them. And the same happens also in Europe, you know, in Belgium with Leopold, I think it's the third, I don't remember. Second, I don't know, who was the owner of the whole of Congo. And there's a huge monument in the middle of Brussels. So I think there's... since I have been working on the film, and the first trip was in 2011, I haven't lived in a period, you know, where the how the past is displayed was so much disputed and discussed. I haven't seen this. So this is, I'd say this is rather a good sign for, you know, for this. Yeah, well, there are people who take care of it now, even if it's small groups, but
Okay, that's helpful.
yes, definitely. Il y a quelqu'un qui te félicite.
Oh, we have to stop? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you a lot. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming.